Hello YouTube world, my name is Nicholas Montez and you're watching my YouTube channel, Nicholas Montez. Welcome back to another YouTube channel for everybody. I'm so excited to have y'all back here together again. And in today's video, we're going to be doing a different type of video because today, we're ranking all 12 DCEU films in the DCEU. No shows, just the movies. And you're probably wondering, why am I doing this? Well, if you don't know, I actually saw Black Adam this past week. Because it was something for school. It was like a reward for something I did in school for one of my classes, so I was able to not have to go to my first and second period, and I was in the library watching Black Adam. And because like I'm always down for a movie, and the thing is, when they said, I didn't know it was gonna be Black Adam until I went there, but all I knew was it was gonna be a DC Comics film. So with that said, I finally have seen Black Adam, so you'll look at my little review in this video for the film. But with that said, let's go ahead and get started ranking all 12 films in the DCEU. Now, this is a film that is probably the most disappointing film of all time. Now, for me, I like when you think of the concept of Suicide Squad, the idea of it is kind of cool, because you have all these supervillains basically getting locked up, and then there's this woman that thinks that they can use them to go in and basically save the world, and then they'll have something in return. And there's something cool about that. The problem with it is, like, first off, we don't even know any of these characters. Now, obviously, it's part of the comics, so it's cool to look at. And of course, you know, the action's of course great. I thought some of the roles in here I thought some of the characters were pretty cool, like Will Smith as Deadshot, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn is great. I loved Killer Croc, Katana. I liked a bunch of characters. But you know, the villain is completely trash. And if I'm being honest, like the Thunderbolts film, we'll talk more about the Thunderbolts film when we get onto like the Suicide Squad, because it's kind of similar to that. But the problem here is, like, the story itself is like, why are you turning supervillains into superheroes? That doesn't really make sense. And you're trying to tell so many stories with all these characters when there's not enough time for that. So it's like you're kind of making an Avengers film. So, it wasn't the best film, and it's definitely not the worst. But it comes in last place for me. Now for me, I will say this, we have a much better version of this version of Justice League, but I will say this, when this movie came out, I'm pretty sure a lot of people can say that this movie had some fun in it. Of course, you know, the best thing about it is, of course, just seeing these characters come on the big screen together, whether it's Flash, or Batman, or Superman again, seeing the entire Justice League of them with Flash, Cyborg, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman, all of these iconic characters fighting Steppenwolf. And you know, there's a lot of bad in this stuff. First off, the CGI is just terrible. Steppenwolf just always says mother, mother, mother. Flash is just basically used as a joke, and he doesn't even know how to like fight people. And now the stuff with Superman I thought was awesome, as he was just beating the crap out of Steppenwolf. He was probably the best character of the film. And honestly, everything else I just don't really remember. But at the same time, I can kind of watch this film and still be like, yeah, it had some fun. But there's a better film than this too. Now for me, this film is so frustrating to talk about, because I first when I watched this, I was gonna be like, man, this is one of the worst DC films because it's just so boring. But if I'm being honest, it's not, because it actually has some good stuff in it. First off, as a Zack Snyder film, it of course works really nicely. Of course, you know, the introduction, it of course does a lot of great stuff with introducing Batman, with Ben Affleck and Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. You get Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. You get more of the Superman characters, and you know, I think Ben Affleck's Batman is really good in this film, especially that warehouse sequence where you basically just get all this cool Batman action. And I would say that this is probably the best Batman action sequence, and that it's probably better than the fight scenes in The Dark Knight and in the new Batman movie. I would say it's definitely better than all those fights. And you know, even the stuff with Wonder Woman I thought was great. The problem with this film, though, is that it tries to do so much. It tries to be a Man of Steel sequel. It tries to be a setup for Batman and Wonder Woman, which I think they do great by. But then they're also trying to set up Justice League and everything. And they try to set up so much, and especially with introducing and bringing in Doomsday and everything. They try to do so much, and even probably killing off Superman and everything. It just doesn't work. Now, of course, you know, the fight between Batman and Superman, as in the title it is, it's of course great. So there's fun to be had in this film, but it's not the greatest film of all time. Now, you're probably thinking, I know a ton of you absolutely love this film. Personally, for me, I think this film does work. Personally, for me, I love the style of James Gunn. That's probably one of the best things about this film, is that James Gunn has a unique style in his directorial stuff. Whether it's Guardians of the Galaxy, whether it's Guardians of the Galaxy is the only thing I've watched of his besides this film. And, you know, a lot of his style is in this film, whether it goes to the soundtrack, which, once again, this movie has an amazing soundtrack, and it feels like James Gunn. You also just got, but then, of course, as it is, you also just got a lot of great action in this film. And parts of it actually feel like, of course, you have big explosions, and you also have hand-to-hand combat, and parts of this also feel like you're watching a slasher film, which is something I really thought was cool, as a bunch of these characters tend to kill a lot of people. But then of course, you got to talk about the characters, and that's one of the things that he is so great about doing with the Guardians of the Galaxy characters, is that he creates characters that we have no idea who they are. He created characters with King Shark and Polka Dot Man, and he was able to make us care for them so much. Like, Polka Dot Man is probably one of the best characters of the entire film, because he has an amazing arc of becoming that superhero and dies a heroic death. Or even Bloodsport, where he's this like very cool guy with guns and everything, but he has a history behind him. King Shark, he is kind of like the Hulk of the story, but he also has some cute moments with all the fish and everything. And even Ratcatcher 2, she's also great. And then they even do stuff where she actually has like this story with her father and everything. And even with Bloodsport, where he's not just a soldier, but he also has a story with his father and his daughter. And then you even get a great story you even get more of Rick Flag and everything, which I loved. And even the stuff they did with Harley Quinn I thought was awesome, especially that action sequence where you have that the guy that's saying the Pennies from Heaven song playing in the background. I thought that fight scene was absolutely great. It just really let Harley Quinn be Harley Quinn. And then, of course, John Cena as Peacemaker, absolutely great. He fits the character right. And when you basically turn him into U.S. Agent or Icarus into this movie, it's pretty cool. And that's kind of why I feel like that, because Thunderbolts in the MCU is going to be a lot similar to this film, it seems like they're taking a lot of inspiration from that. And I think that John Walker is going to be the Peacemaker of the Thunderbolts team. However, why is it so low for me? Well, first off, this movie does a lot. This movie does a lot of stuff. Now, while I love the action in this film, the action is fantastic. The problem with it is they just go too far. It's like the first character you kill off, and that kind of goes back to what my issue is with the first Suicide Squad film, is that they introduce a bunch of new characters that, we've gone throughout the journey with them, like Rick Flag and Polka Dot Man. But the first character they kind of kill off is Weasel. which is a guy that which is a character that's known for killing 22 children, or 20-something children, and then he's the first one to die by drowning in the water, by drowning in the ocean. But then he gets revived at the end in the end credit scene of the film. So I'm like, what the hell? What's going on here? So like, and then you have this whole fight scene where a bunch of characters that we don't even know get killed off, and at the same time, it's like they try to do so much, and then when you get to the third act, and you have all these people that are mind controlled by this starfish on their face, Bloodsport just starts killing and chopping their hands off and chopping their heads off, and I'm like, bro, you're literally killing civilians here. Yes, they're mind controlled, but you don't have to kill them. Like, you could at least like hit them or something. Like, you can't hurt these people. And that's the thing. James Gunn kind of went too far a little bit on that. And also, it just kind of got to the point where you couldn't really feel emotional for these characters, because characters have already died in the film. So it's like, how can you feel emotional for certain characters if many of them have died in the film? So I guess you could say I did kind of feel emotional, but for certain ones, not really. But this film is still fun. I still like to rewatch it, and the action is great. So this film is still rewatchable, but not the best. Alright, so now we're talking about Black Adam, and so this is basically going to be my little review for the film. So what are my thoughts on Black Adam? I think that this is a fun film from DC that introduces a new character into the DCEU, and, this movie was 15 years in the making, so it's not technically meant to be a great film. But I think the way they actually told this story was just kind of fun and made you kind of feel like you're back in that generation of those types of superhero films. But, The Rock was working on this film ever since he had hair. So it makes sense why this film would have worked for a couple people. But, the movie tells a pretty familiar story of this guy who back in the day was a slave, and so he has to go and get some superpowers from the Shazam place. And he gains those superpowers, and then he comes back many years later, and he basically is just killing a lot of people. And honestly, I think the best thing about this film easily goes to the action sequences. A bunch of action, whether it's the powers of Black Adam. Yes, it's like Shazam, but it's very well done in the way it's done. And I like how it's a lot more darker, where he literally kills people. He would crush a human skull, and he would also just burn people alive, but also split people in half, and it's just absolutely glorious. And The Rock nails it. I like how it almost feels like Terminator in a way, where it's like he's this serious guy. He's from the past, but it's like this movie has nothing to do with time travel. So I kind of like that though. And so then then you get into the characters of the Justice Society of America, which I actually thought they were pretty cool. The two characters I really liked were Dr. Fate and Hawkman, which I thought had great character. I love all the fights between Hawkman and Black Adam. I thought they were great, especially that fight when he went to go save the soldiers, and that scene where he's like, heroes don't kill people, but I do. And then they just start having a brawl out fight where it's like there's no music. They're just fighting it out and using their powers to the best of their abilities. And I'm like, this is awesome. And at first when they were teaming up, I was thinking like, wait, they're going to team up? I'm like, okay, that's cool. I was thinking Black Adam wasn't going to listen to reason, and he was just going to be the villain throughout the entire thing of the film. But somehow he was actually able to work with these characters and actually listen to these humans. And so and then of course, they're after this crown, which honestly is kind of pointless. The villain is pretty bad, doesn't really do anything for the film. And of course, Dr. Fate definitely gives a lot of Doctor Strange vibes. I definitely like that. And then and also there's something I was not expecting was Hawkman using Dr. Fate's helmet to do a trick on the villain. I was not expecting that at all. And the fact that they were able to work together with Black Adam and all the other characters in the Justice Society of America makes me want to see a Justice Society of America film where we actually get to see the origins of these characters, or at least certain films where we actually get to see the team coming together. That's what I want to see. So then, that's pretty much all. And then, Black Adam comes into his new suit, which of course, it's awesome, it's badass, I love it. But then, I think the best thing about this film that probably everybody's talking about is Henry Cavill coming back as Superman. Probably the best thing about this movie, as we haven't seen him since last year in Zack Snyder's Justice League, but that was more of director's cut. We actually haven't seen him since 2017 in the 2017 Justice League film. So it's been a while, and the fact that we're finally getting a Man of Steel sequel is awesome, so I cannot wait to watch that film. So that's my little review on Black Adam. Now let's move on to the rest of the list. Now, for some reason, a lot of people said they didn't really like this movie a lot, but honestly, I actually liked it. Now, I've only watched it once, which was last year, but I can definitely say that it's not a bad movie or anything. It's definitely good. Personally, it has that 80s cheese as it takes place in 1984, so I think that cheese does kind of work. And, yes, the story of Wonder Woman, still simping over a guy that she only knew for about a week. Yeah, it is kind of meh. It is kind of weird. And it is kind of cool the way they bring they bring Steve Trevor back. But the thing is, and I love all the stuff they do with Cheetah and the way the story is organized. The problem here is that while it's a cool story, there's not really a real threat. Because if you take the monkey's paw out of the way and all the wishes are gone, there's not really a real threat. The whole threat, because the powers aren't, because it's like they're trying to make the characters the villains, when really it's the monkey's paw that should be stopped. And I don't know, I guess they try to find a way to still tell that story. And the action sequences in this film are pretty cool. It's like this monkey's paw is turning them evil, and it's cool. I liked it. But it seems kind of like a lazy way to make these characters actually to make you care about them. And I wasn't really the biggest fan of that. But overall, I did like Wonder Woman 1984, and I feel like people need to give this movie a bit more credit. Alright, so now we're talking about Aquaman, and honestly, this is such a fun film. First off, Jason Momoa is great as the Aquaman character. I loved him in this role. The movie, the best thing about this movie is honestly the action sequences. All the action is well choreographed. And even though most of it is kind of CGI, it's absolutely well choreographed. And I like I love how James Wan directs his fights. If you've ever seen *Malignant* or *Furious 7*, his action sequences are absolutely fantastic. And this film knows how to capture that in great ways. So I think that this film really does a lot of great stuff. I loved introducing the world of Atlantis. I loved Mira, though she probably will be getting recasted because of the whole Amber Heard and Johnny Depp situation. The villain in Ocean Master I thought was pretty cool. The people can say that this film is kind of like a Black Panther. I can kind of understand why, but overall the movie is pretty good. I also love the villain of Black Manta, and as his backstory, and I'm excited to see him in the second film with probably a more powered up armor, hopefully. So overall, I really enjoyed this film. It's not trying to be the best film, but it is just a nice bit of fun for the DC universe. Now we get to Shazam, and honestly, this is such a really good superhero film. First off, Zachary Levi is just great as this character of Shazam, and Billy Batson of playing this man-child superhero, and he just works in this role so well, and I love it so much. And all the other characters in the film I think are great. I thought Dr. Zavanna was almost a good villain, but when you introduce monsters and all that stuff, it just bores it down for me. So I wasn't really the biggest fan of that. And then when we get to the whole middle section of the film, there are some pretty cool action of the film. And then when you get to the story of him and everything, I like the story. I like the backstory that they do with him. But overall, it was fine. And also, after watching Black Adam, because Black Adam has the powers of Shazam, because if you remember, there was a one throne missing for someone to sit in there. Was that last seat for Black Adam, or am I tripping? That's what I'm assuming. I don't know. I don't know. I probably should know. I don't know, but yeah. But I did like this film, and it's just a lot of fun. Definitely a lot of fun. Then we got Man of Steel, and honestly, as the first film of the DCEU, I thought this was a really good film. Where Henry Cavill is great as Superman. I thought Amy Adams was great as Lois Lane. I thought General Zod was a great villain. The score from Hans Zimmer is great, and some of the Superman action is actually pretty well done. So I think this actually told a really well Superman origin story, even though I have no idea what the Superman character is. All I know is that he's basically the more powered up version of Captain America, and that he stands for hope. Though he's not a soldier, he's a sort of Thor-like god. But honestly, this movie's still cool, and I'm so excited for Man of Steel 2. Now I get to Wonder Woman 1984, Wonder Woman, the original film, and honestly, this is such a much better film, as this movie is definitely a very good film. Gal Gadot, as we finally get to see her in the main lead, it's great seeing her in this role. I love Chris Pine as Steve Trevor in this movie. I love the whole introduction to the place where it is basically just a land of girls, nothing of men, and just this girl that enters the World War I is honestly a little cool idea. And then you get the whole no man's land scene, and it's probably one of the best moments of the entire film, as it really means something to a bunch of superhero fans. And even then, the action is also really good. The villains are pretty ass. I will admit they are pretty ass. But overall, the movie tells a pretty compelling story. It does great with the characters. The action is great. The music is great. Overall, the film is just really good, and it's definitely one of the coolest superhero films of all time. Alright, so now we're talking about a film that, when they first announced it, I was like, okay, this is gonna happen? Alright, sure. And they released the trailer, and I'm like, okay, this looks cool, but it just looks like the exact same film, except Darkseid is the villain of the film now. So how is this gonna be any different? And then I saw the film, and it was definitely worth watching, most definitely. As the best thing about, of course the story is the same, of stopping Steppenwolf from getting these mother boxes, but they do something with the characters to make them matter and to make you care about them. I think the two best characters of the entire film were probably Cyborg and the Flash, where Cyborg just deals with this story of, being this football player, getting his bones broken, his body broken, becoming this cyborg, and then his father dies, and then that inspires him to become that hero he's supposed to be. And I thought that was actually a really cool story to come up with. And then when you get Flash, he's not a wimp. Yes, he makes a bit of jokes, but he's still a hero, and they use him in the proper way, where he gets one of the best moments of the entire film, where he actually rewinds. Every step he takes, he goes back in time. And I think that's how they're gonna set up the Flash film. I'm hoping that's how it is, but it's definitely something. And And even the characters like Flash, like Aquaman and Wonder Woman, like yeah, they didn't really have much to do in the film, but I actually liked seeing their appearances, and they were actually really cool. And even Batman, I actually liked, and even Superman was awesome, where he actually gets the black Superman suit, and he goes in and beats the crap out of Steppenwolf, and then even then, Steppenwolf, you actually kind of care about him a little bit. And yeah, he does kind of look worse in this film, and he does kind of look like Call Obsidian from Avengers Infinity War, but his character is much better in this film than he was in the original Justice League film. And I'm hoping that this sets up a Justice League 2, because it needs to happen. It needs to. We get introduced to Martian Manhunter at the end of the film, and you just put it all together. The action's great, the characters are great, and overall the movie is just great and one of the best DCEU films of all time. So I love Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now this is a movie that I heard a lot of negative reviews for, and honestly, to all of you that don't like this movie, I don't understand. But for me, I love this movie. This is a great film. First off, they really just explore a different type of story of what if Harley Quinn broke up with the Joker and she had her own little story. And honestly, that is so amazing. Where they create this story that's kind of like Guy Ritchie films, but also feels a lot like John Wick and Deadpool in the way the story is told. And learning about Deadpool, the way the story is told with the way it's like John Wick is the way they did the action sequences. And by the way, the action is spectacularly amazing. Is spectacular in this film. There's so many cool action, and Margot Robbie was actually in on this, and I loved that. So for me, the action is great, and even all the characters that we got introduced to with Barbara and the little girl, and all the characters that we got introduced to, all of them. Everything about this film is absolutely great, and you don't really need to do big epic explosions. You can actually have smaller stuff, and it could still be cool and stuff. So I loved this movie. I loved this film. It has great action, great characters. It's pretty funny. It is definitely a cool rated R film, and I loved it. So I love Birds of Prey, Harley Quinn, and that's pretty much my updated ranking of the entire DCEU. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoy. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. All my social media stuff is in the About section over there. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.